So before we dive right into that, because that's a whole topic I've got some specific questions on, but just tell me a little bit about your background and where you got the idea for Crükus Marketing from.
Well, my background is in law enforcement, which, building a company wasn't really something to think about in law enforcement or running a company. But that was a very, it was a specific part of my life I wanted to do since I was 7 years old. But as I neared the end of my career, I really wanted to build a company. And I've got an associate's degree in business administration, but that doesn't mean nothing when it comes to building a company. But I know I wanted to do it. So I just decided to retire early and then move on to the next phase. And I ended up in radio. I did that for about 6 months on kind of like a trial basis of doing some stuff with a show. And then after I retired, I got involved with doing another one with real estate and really wanted to meet business owners. And then, I figured out my name was going to be Crükus. I didn't know the rest of it. I knew it was Crükus, so it's a made-up word, right? But I figured it's cool. And then just walking it out and figuring out, well, social media was a good thing, Facebook and Instagram advertising, but I hated that. It's high risk and it's very stressful for the businesses that are involved in it, and it's very competitive. And you really have to do well at it for businesses to get their ROI on it that they're looking for. So it's really not my thing, but social media management kind of was. So I did some of that stuff around the podcast show, meeting business owners, which was the reason for the podcast show, so I could meet business owners. And then learning that, hey, my business is growing. How am I going to do this? And then I got into virtual assistant hiring. And that's what really kind of opened my eyes that this is a big deal. And it's super affordable. There's complexities to it that business owners can get through very low cost. The ability to hire and fire as you need without a lot of legal stuff that we have to battle with, or extra costs, administrative costs of hiring locally that really kind of stifle young entrepreneurship, So that's what I loved about it, these types of elements here. And then I started with one, freaked my wife out, with why are you spending some of our profits on this? And she's thinking like an employee, though. That's how she thinks. And I was like, I'm not building a job for myself. I'm building a company. And when you take that kind of mindset, and then you're good with leverage, you understand that leverage can work well, and then you have a pool of applicants or people that you can really kind of employ and do that with, there's really no limit to what you can accomplish.
Yeah. Well, and what I think is really interesting is you didn't go into business. You said Crükus was a made-up word. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. So you took it from, I know I want to start a business. Radio kind of came about. Then that evolved from radio to social media management, which evolved into the virtual assistant company that you own now. That's created leverage, and the energy that you bring to the table when you talk about leverage and virtual assistants is so different than the energy you bring when you're talking about social media management or even radio, even though you're still doing a podcast now, but it's more of a means to the end, where leverage is like, this is what has made me successful. That's the kind of energy you bring to it. So I love it. What was that spark that got you from being an employee? And my uncle did this. He was a prison guard in California for 30 years. He retired. He went over to Bentonville, Arkansas, got another job at Walmart. So now he makes two salaries, right? His pension and his active. So what gave you that spark of, I want to go and build my own business instead of just getting another job and getting that double salary?
Well, there's a lot of frustration. I was a sergeant with the San Antonio Police Department for 16 years. I filled that position for a long time. And I never wanted to go any higher because it's like you make lieutenant, captain, and so forth. And it's like, it just, the work done at those levels was awful. Policies are bad. There's no sense of control. You get a bad patrolman in that's not fit for the job and they need to be fired. There's a whole mess of a process that's involved in that. It's just it's stifling. And so I wanted to do something where I could build my own thing. I had this spark of wanting to, you could think that I'm very confident in myself and my abilities.
That comes across.
Right. But even if I'm wrong, it's like I'll go all in on being wrong, and I'm okay if I'm wrong. Let's learn from it and let's move on. And I think that's a good core principle for an entrepreneur, is to be able to recognize, hey, this is not working, right? We need to rethink it and move on. So I have that drive, but I needed to be able to wrap myself around something I believed in. And with virtual assistant hiring, I'm a product of the service. So that's why I know it works. It's not a magic bullet, right? Because you could, and I've done this. I've hired people that didn't work out. I just fired 2 people over the last couple of weeks. But the firing process is very simple, right? It's not expensive, right? You just
It's not.
terminate.
You have to go to workforce commission and deal with all the hullabaloo.
Or get sued because, you didn't follow steps 1 through 16 on the out, you know what I mean? The exit process. It's just stupid. So this is very freeing in that way. So I'm able to move and quickly and do it. So, and then, it's work. So hiring a VA, a remote worker, you have to train them. So for a busy entrepreneur, and I went through this in 2 major phases, and I had to slow down so I could train. And what would be frustrating is if that person doesn't work out, because then you have to do it again. But that's the risk that you take. Do you want to take it at a high level, or do you want to take it, at a remote worker level? And your risk is seriously mitigated. But the bottom line is I had to grow. So as I'm doing this and I'm figuring it out and I'm getting better at it, and I'm like, this is amazing. This is so empowering for people like me who want to scale. Some people are fine with having a job. And I think that's one of the things that are my core principles in that mind map that you built out. The first one that I start with is job owner versus business owner. And I knew what I wanted from the get-go.
So what does that mean to you, being a job owner?
It is working the ins and outs of the business on a daily basis and not really planning your way out of it. You just want to do the work. I don't want to, some people are like this, that I just don't want a boss. I want to work for myself. And they're fine in that world. I'm not. I didn't want to create a job for myself. I wanted to build a company. There's a big difference.
And tell me a little bit about what that difference looks like.
One, let's say you've got a plumber, right? So, and I know some plumbers out there. I meet a lot of them, and they go make the calls, right? They're answering the phones. So having a conversation can be difficult because they might have to pick up the phone and take the call, right? Because it's a service call, or it's a maybe new business call, or whatever it is. They drive the trucks to where they're going, or if they're not doing the job themselves, they're supervising the job, or they're checking on the job themselves. They're by the phone. They're anchored to it, and it's difficult to get that time off. And they're really not looking to grow to a company that is organized and structured in a way that can execute the business without them.
And what does that role look like owning a business? You are a business owner versus a job owner.
So the beauty of this is you actually start out as a job owner. I did.
You
right?
work your way up in the company.
But yeah, I had a plan of moving my way out, and because I'm building that structure out. You know what I mean? And it's like a tent. When you put up a tent, you go around and you do the pegs and you do the things, and then when you push that thing up, it's like whoa, that was fast. And that's kind of how it was with me. I started with one employee. I started myself doing everything and found myself overwhelmed, but I was full of energy. And that's the thing too, when you start a business, you have so much energy at the start, but what does that look like 2 years from now? Can you sustain that day in and day out, all of the energy that is required to do that, all of those things? And for me, I couldn't see myself doing that. I had to plan to say, okay, I'm going to work my way out of this position, because then I can have new energy for new things, which is exciting for my type of personality. So that's how I did it. And so I ended up with one, and then now I'm at 23, fixing to be 24, 25, 26, I think, this week.
Wow, yeah.
It's like it just grows, and it just scales like that hockey stick, right? It just keeps going and going and going. And all my employees either seriously facilitate what I'm doing so that I can make more money, or they make me money in my company.
So at the end of the day, leverage is that big distinction between owning that job and owning that business.
That's the only way you can do it. I don't see it any other way, unless you have robots, but even that's leverage,
Robots,
right?
AI, right?
Right? But you have to leverage in order to get your time back and to be able to scale. See, here's another thing. So I have a retirement pension, right? It comes to me every month. I've earned it, right? I
Yeah.
paid for it, earned it, all good, right? But it's this.
It'll never grow.
Right. Well, there's a cost of living, which I didn't even know about, by the way, but there's a cost of living increase that we can get, which I thought is great. So it grows a little bit. But the thing is that it's flat. It's basically flat.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is with the economy and lifestyle and the need that the expenses that you have as you grow older and the things you want to do. And if you have more time on your hands, like if you're retired, then you probably want to spend more money. Well, your needs are going to go up. They're not flat. So we need income that will continue to grow. And in business, why would you want to build something that goes flat? That is only dependent on what you can do in 8 hours or 10 hours or 15 hours. Why not build something that will continue to grow? You can work your 8 hours, but why not have something that's going to continue to perform past that?
Absolutely. I mean, we all look at it. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. Why do some people get so much more done with it?
So, and we've had this conversation with my wife. It's like I tell her I've got I think 6 people on my administrative staff that are working 40 hours a week for me. Okay, so 6 times 40 hours is what is that? 240 hours
240, yeah.
plus my 40 hours, right? So 280 hours of work goes in. I've multiplied my efforts by that much. So I'm getting a lot done in a week.
Yeah.
To me, that's exciting.
Yeah, so you compound your time effect. You have more time freedom. But what other things does leverage give you beyond just taking tasks off your plate?
So mental bandwidth is huge. I'm a creative person. So I don't want to be put in a box or a corner, right? As
Nobody
they say,
puts
don't put
baby in a
baby in a corner, right? So I want to be able to be creative. We were talking to Isaac earlier, and he likes that too. He likes to, okay, let me do this to get something going, then I want to go on to the next thing, right? Which is great as long as you're supporting the things that you're kind of moving away from, right? Because we can't, abdication's not necessarily bad, but we can't abdicate too early.
Yeah.
Right? We have to delegate and we have to really kind of have that accountability piece in place in order to make sure that the integrity of that is there, because if it starts to crumble, people will flee.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a boat with holes in it. People are going to jump off and go someplace else. And you don't want that with your staff and your customers and all that kind of stuff too. But the mental bandwidth that I need or that I want to have to be creative and to think of these new things to do, and this, like talking with you as my business coach and getting these ideas that come in. It's like if I don't have the mental bandwidth to process that because I'm so overwhelmed by everything else, then it's like I can't execute on anything. There's nothing left in the tank. So I need that mental bandwidth in order to do that. And leverage gives me that, because now I delegate tasks to my supervisors, boop, 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 and then they're running their teams, and then I just say, hey, I've got this idea. I want to make sure we're paying attention to this on Instagram, and then she goes and executes it with the team. My mental bandwidth only requires me to have the idea, communicate the idea, and then check up on the idea. I'm free otherwise. I don't have to go through the whole process of implementing, managing, and all of those other pieces that go with being good at it.
Yeah, it's like it gives you the ability to have the time freedom and the mental freedom to think, how do I work at this smarter? How do I make this easier? And that kind of thing absolutely combats burnout.
Yeah.
Because burnout, if you don't have the mental ability to step back and just think of different ways to approach things, the answer tends to be work harder.
Yeah, which I almost think that's an American slogan. Work harder, because we work hard. We do. I mean, all over the country, people are working harder, and I love that. But we need to put some of that work smarter into it, but then also leverage. I've loved having conversations with business owners when I introduce the idea of leveraging through remote working, because it's almost overwhelming to them, because the gears are going, the smoke is coming out. I mean, because they're like, this is new information. I've never even thought about it this way because it seems so out of reach, but I bring it within reach, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is something that I can do, and that's how I pick up my customers.
Absolutely. And so it's massively affecting the business. It's allowing you to have the ability to have those those conversations with other business owners too, where it's not just give me more business, but it's collaborating and being able to share that you are a product of what you're selling, basically.
Yep.
So you've got the mental bandwidth to be able to think of new ideas. We've talked about the time compounding. You've got 280 hours a week into your business versus 40 hours a week into your business. Where else does that time freedom affect your life and your business?
Well, being able to shut down at 6 o'clock at night as opposed to going to 8, 9 o'clock at night. Now, I do run over at times, but here's another thing too, is I like to play video games. Okay, I do.
How dare you?
And I have this fun side of me, right, that I have to feed. Well, when I was a cop and I'm doing my work, I couldn't interrupt my day and play video games, right? Because you're getting paid by the hour, right? That's a
I don't
big
think the
no-no.
police commissioner would be really thrilled with you.
Right. But in my job, it's like I can do that. I can take a break and I can have some fun in the middle of my day and then I can move on. So that is a form of time freedom there too. Taking Saturdays off now and just being like, I'm shutting down on Saturdays because that's more of a Schlitterbahn day. It's the summertime. We're having a good time. But being able to shut that off, it's like if I'm a plumber or if I have to be by that phone all the time and I have to answer it. I don't even take my phone to Schlitterbahn. I don't have it with me the whole time. My wife has hers, and I'm telling her, I don't even think you need to bring yours. And Brooke doesn't bring hers. We're just unplugging for that portion of a Saturday kind of thing, which is harder to do if you don't have that time freedom. If you don't own aren't we working to own some of our own time back? I like to be busy too, but we need to be able to shut down and give our bodies and minds and our families a break.
I think that comes back around again to owning a business instead of a job, because a job you cannot step away. You don't have the ability to control your time like that. But when you own a business, that's what you get to do. And leverage is what gives you the ability to do that without losing all of your business.
Well, they like to think that's what they can do, but I think the reality that hits them in the face when people get into entrepreneurship is if you don't structure it right, then you're trapping yourself, actually. It's going to be worse. Maybe you should have just taken a job where you can call in sick or you can do your vacation time, but you put in your 40 hours and that's it. Entrepreneurship's not that way.
Well, I think we've all met young entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs who are just starting out, and they tell us, "Oh, I'm starting out because I want to have freedom and flexibility." We all kind of chuckle because everyone in business knows that business can very easily expand and take up as much time as you'll give it if you don't set those boundaries and create that structure. And speaking of structure, there's leverage through people, but there's also leverage through systems and processes. So what are some non-staff oriented ways that you create structure in your business?